It's okay when I'm speaking if I take it.
Yeah, we're gonna mask up, and when people are speaking, they'll take their masks off. Go ahead. No problem.
More than I usually do, I should say. Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for being here. And I am really delighted to be here with all of you to celebrate the House passage of the Build Back Better Act. And I'll thank my colleague, Congressman Langevin, and all the partners that are behind us. Thank Patrick Quinn of SEIU for not only his great advocacy, but for hosting us. Catherine Taylor from AARP, Leanne Barrett of Kids Count, Emma Villa, a child care provider here in Rhode Island, and folks who have advocated for different components of Build Back Better. Tina from RAMP, the Senior Agenda Coalition of Rhode Island, Protect Our Healthcare Coalition, the Rhode Island Interfaith Coalition to Reduce Poverty, and the Rhode Island Organizing Project, and many, many others. But thank you to everyone. We're here today to really celebrate the work that we've done together that has helped get us to this point of advancing a set of policies in the Build Back Better bill that are going to provide important investments to Rhode Island working families for many, many years. I think we all recognize that our country is really at a critical crossroads as we're recovering and working to recover from the health crisis, the pandemic, and also the economic crisis that followed. And that's a responsibility that we have here in the United States, but it's happening obviously all over the world. And as we look to our future, the legislation that we passed in the House will allow us to provide for an economic recovery and a public health response, but most importantly, a recovery that will provide us an opportunity for the economy to come back in a way that works for everyone, that gives everyone an opportunity to succeed, which is why the president called it Build Back Better. So not build back the old economy that benefited people at the very top, but didn't benefit working people and middle class families and people who are aspiring to the middle class. And so this is really a once in a generation opportunity to transform the lives of millions of Americans and hundreds of thousands of Rhode Islanders by reducing costs from everything from prescription drugs to child care and home care, by creating good paying union jobs, by addressing the urgency of the climate crisis, and cutting taxes for working families. So we're going to, in this bill, we finally lower prescription drug costs by allowing Medicare to negotiate prescription drugs. It puts patients first and ahead of big pharma and really ending the stranglehold that pharma has on our country for so long. Under Build Back Better, we will also cap the price of insulin as an example so that people with diabetes aren't forced to ration their medication, putting their lives at risk, and guaranteeing insulin will not cost more than $35 a month. We're going to stop Big Pharma's really uncontrolled, outrageous price hikes above inflation with no rhyme or reason year after year after year. We're also closing the Medicaid coverage gap and expanding Medicare and extending the American Rescue Plan's health insurance premium reductions, making sure every person can afford the health insurance they need and deserve. These policies will help 6,000 uninsured Rhode Islanders gain coverage and will help 7,700 Rhode Islanders save on average, several $100s each year. Healthcare is a human right and not something that should bankrupt any American family. We're also going to lower everyday costs for American families by lowering the cost of child care, elder care, and care for individuals with disabilities. In the area particularly of children, today only 16% of 3 and 4-year-olds in our state have access to publicly funded preschool. The Build Back Better Act will expand access to free high-quality preschool to everyone, and in Rhode Island to nearly 15,000 additional toddlers. And just to give you a context of what that means in savings, the average cost in Rhode Island for toddler preschool that's in a non-public funded program is $10,913. So that cost will no longer be a cost that families will have to bear. That will be made available without any charge. The Build Back Better Act also provides access to child care for 60,000 Rhode Island children under the age of 5, ensuring again that it's high quality and affordable, and ensuring that middle class families will pay no more than 7% of their income for these programs. And this covers the families of 9 in 10 young children in our state, so almost all the children in Rhode Island. Just again, as to give an example of what that cost savings will be, the average cost in Rhode Island for non-public funded preschool is about $8,600, and so that's a tremendous savings for Rhode Island families. Also, Build Back Better extends the child tax credit that is available to 173,000 Rhode Island families, children who are eligible, and we will continue, obviously, lift children out of poverty through that. We have cut child poverty almost in half as a result of that, and most importantly, make it more affordable for families just to bear the regular costs of providing for their children. Again, that provides a $3,000 per child per year credit for children over 6, and a $3,600 per child per year for children 6 and under. So those are tremendously impactful for families. We're also investing $150 billion to expand access to quality home and community-based services for millions of older adults and Americans with disabilities, so that those who need care get the quality and stability of the care that they deserve. The Build Back Better Act also invests $20 billion in workforce development programs that will allow workers to build new skills while earning a paycheck, which will help prepare Rhode Island workers for high-quality jobs in high-demand sectors, including public health and childcare. All of these policies are going to help us build a future that works for everyone, and as we work to ensure that future, we have to ensure that our planet is also safe for our children to inhabit in the future and generations to come by addressing the climate crisis head-on. And the Build Back Better Act will provide the largest investment ever made in combating the climate crisis in this country. It will cut greenhouse gas emissions by more than 1 gigaton in 2030, reduce energy costs, and create good-paying union jobs as we cement the U.S. as a leader in the clean energy economy. So when you pair the Build Back Better Act with the bipartisan infrastructure bill, together they will create 1.5 million good-paying union jobs over the course of the next decade, and really accelerate America's path to full employment. So that's 15 million jobs, good-paying jobs over the next decade. And all this comes, I think, very importantly, at no cost to middle class and working people in this country. The initiatives are completely paid for by ensuring large corporations and the wealthiest individuals in this country pay their fair share of taxes, while it actually lowers taxes for ordinary Americans, including 47,600 low-wage workers here in Rhode Island, by extending the American Rescue Plan's Earned Income Tax Credit expansion. So this is a really exciting opportunity. This legislation is going to make a tremendous difference to Rhode Island's working families. Many of these things are things that people in this room have fought for decades, and it's finally happening. I want to end by applauding the leadership of President Biden, without whose vision and steadfast advocacy for this would not have brought us the victory that he did. The bill is now in the Senate, and we know our Senate colleagues are working hard to make sure they pass it and send it to the President's desk. And it is now my pleasure to turn the podium over to my senior colleague in the House, Congressman Landry, my friend and great colleague, incredible advocate for Rhode Island's working families, Jim Landry.
Not going to bump anybody here. No. All right. Well, you can see why this bill is called a once-in-a-generation investment in America's working families, and it really is a building back better, which is the goal of President Biden and for all of us. It really is going to make a transformative difference. I just want to say how pleased I am to be here today with my colleague in the 1st District, Congressman Cicilline, and thank him for helping to organize this event and for his leadership. We were there late on Thursday night and then turned into wound up voting on it early Friday morning, getting this bill across the finish line, getting it through the House. Now we're waiting for the Senate to act, and we hope it will be soon. But I just want to acknowledge David's leadership, and also wanted to acknowledge Patrick Quinn and SEIU for hosting us here today. Thank you very much for all you do in our community. Also Kathleen Taylor from AARP, and all the advocates who are here to join us. The Build Back Better Act really will be transformative for Rhode Island's middle-class families and families at the lowest end of the economic income scale, really to help level the playing field and help people to finally really get ahead. And we are just so excited about this. David did a great job of outlining many of the important things in the bill. I won't repeat everything, but I am going to highlight some of the most significant once again, because the impact of this bill really cannot be overstated. It simply put, the Build Back Better Act will reduce costs and cut taxes for Rhode Island families. It'll create good paying jobs and make the bold investments that are really necessary to tackle the full weight of climate crisis. Again, these are once-in-a-generation investments in our families and also combating climate to really make a profound difference for the future, so that we can really leave a country and a planet in better off shape than when we found it. And otherwise, we would not be heading in the right direction were it not for this bill. For years, I've been fighting to reduce the cost of prescription drugs also for older Americans and for Rhode Islanders. I can remember when the prescription drug bill was passed years ago, and it had that line in there that said the Secretary of Health and Human Services will not use bulk purchasing power to negotiate on price. Completely outrageous, and clearly the bill was written by and for the drug companies at that time. We are going to change that now to make sure that we are negotiating prescription drug prices. Thanks for the Build Back Better Act. Medicare will finally be able to negotiate for lower prices with pharmaceutical companies, and seniors will pay less in out-of-pocket drug costs, and the price of insulin will be capped for Rhode Islanders with diabetes. We are extending the expanded Biden child tax credit, which will cut taxes for 35 million middle-class families, including the families of 173,000 children in Rhode Island. The Build Back Better Act will also lower the cost of and improve the access to high-quality health care for older Americans and Americans with disabilities. Very important that we do this and help elderly Americans better afford hearing care through expanded Medicare benefits. So we're reining in also the cost of child care by ensuring that no family is paying more than 7% of their income for child care. What a transformative thing that will be. That in and of itself is a major tax cut for Rhode Island working families with children. And it will also establish universal preschool for every 3 and 4-year-old in our state. Another area was going to have long-term impact on the education of our children, making sure they're exposed to early education opportunities at these very, very critical formative stages in their lives. And although it faces an uphill battle in the Senate, I'm fighting to make sure that universal paid family and medical leave program makes it into the final text of the bill. It passed in the House. I know it's an uphill battle in the Senate, but we are going to do our best to make sure we're fighting to keep that provision in the bill. We're also expanding access to high quality health care, supporting major investments in affordable housing, and lowering the cost of post-secondary education. This bill also is the single largest investment in our nation's fight, again, against climate change ever. It's a huge, huge investment. Even better, the benefits of this legislation are fully paid for. And the Build Back Better Act won't add a dime to the deficit. In fact, it will actually reduce the deficit by more than $100 million over the next 10 years, according to the calculations. And you say that how? Well, it's going to do it by making sure that big corporations and the richest Americans pay their fair share. It's only the right thing to do. And let me be clear that no Rhode Islander making under $400,000 will pay a cent more in taxes. So over the past few months, I've heard from Rhode Islanders also about the impacts of increased inflation. You know, I see it, we all see it at the grocery store, at the gas pump, and I know that you're seeing it as well. Well, this is just one more reason that we need to get this legislation to the President's desk as soon as possible. 17 Nobel Prize winning economists also agreed that the Build Back Better Act will actually reduce inflationary pressures, and it couldn't come at a better time. So to finish, just to wrap this up, I just could not be more excited about getting the Build Back Better Act across the finish line. I'm confident that we will. There's no doubt about it. The COVID-19 pandemic was a tough time for all of us. But thanks to President Biden's bold vision, this legislation is going to help our communities to build back better. So thank you all for being here. And now I'm introducing the head of SEIU, Patrick Quinn. Patrick, thank you.
Thank you very much. so much. Yeah, first off, I just want to thank, my staff that helped pull this together, and Congressman Langevin and Congressman Cicilline's staff to help put this all together, because there's a lot that goes into it, so I really appreciate that. I want to thank all of our partners in this. We've had a number of different victories here in Rhode Island around these issues, home care and child care, and there's a lot of work to done. But really, yet to be done. But really, what most people know Rhode Island, they think of Newport, they think of the beaches, they think of all of the beautiful colonial buildings. This is a bill that helps people in Arctic, in Warren, in Woonsocket, in Westerly. Rhode Island's a blue collar state, always has been, always will be. But the workforce has changed. Thankfully, we're a state of immigrants. That is who is taking care of people in our state, whether it's home care. We'll hear from Emma in a little bit, or issues in long-term care, in nursing homes, in home care. We need to acknowledge that the major step that this bill brings forward is a recognition of this work and how this work has been undervalued. Undervalued because it's primarily women of color and immigrants that are doing this work. I've kind of worn it out, but with respect to home care, it's like everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. Everybody wants home care. They want to stay in their home. They want to be supported in their home, but nobody wants to pay for it. This bill puts us on a path to doing that. We wouldn't be here without all the advocacy of all the people that are behind me and our political leaders. Rhode Island has been a leader, whether it's on home-based child care or on helping to move forward on the IP program in home care, and obviously the raise the bar legislation of last year. So we've had great partners in the General Assembly, in our statewide offices, absolute champions in our federal delegation. This is a big step forward. Anybody who's a parent has lived this experience. When your kid goes to K or pre-K, or goes to first grade, it's like you're getting a raise because you're paying so much money for childcare. And everybody has lived the experience of, well, actually, no, not everybody has, because not everybody's parents survive into old age, but many of us have lived that experience of seeing our parents decline, and wanting to be there, but having other responsibilities, raising our own kids, holding down a job. And it's really, really important that we recognize that there's individuals who juggle multiple things, raising their own kids, taking care of their parents. They do it out of love and respect, but at a certain point it becomes too much, and they need paid help, which is what this bill is about in terms of long-term care. It recognizes that before anybody can go to work, somebody's usually taking care of their kids or taking care of their elderly relatives, so they can go to work to build up infrastructure. Well, this is infrastructure as well, because it enables people to get to work. And as we see right at this moment, right now, we have a situation where it's very difficult for people to go back to work because childcare is open and then it's closed, or it's expensive and then it's not available. Same thing is happening with trying to take care of our elderly folks. So building that infrastructure is going to help us turn the corner in terms of economic recovery, particularly as it relates to women, because let's be real, that's who's doing this work. If you have a sister, that's usually who's taking care of mom. The issue is that labor force participation is being held back, and whether it's simple things like hospitality or healthcare or all those other industries, if you're not making a living wage, you know, it's really hard to put food on the table for your family. So addressing, bringing people back into the workforce, the underpinnings of that are home care and child care, and this bill takes a huge step forward on that. So I really want to thank Representative Langerman and Representative Cicilline for helping us move forward on this. I know our Senate leaders are going to do the same thing, and I just appreciate all of our partners' efforts over the last couple of years to get some of this stuff done at the state level. Now it will be fully funded and paid for. Huge step forward. So I want to introduce Emma Villa, who's a home-based child care provider and a member of 1199.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to stay here. In 17 years, I'm a child care provider for 17 years in Providence. And I'm so happy to do this job. But the thing is, everybody knows that's the difficult time we are now. So that's why we're looking for, we need to ensure more funds are dedicated to child care so that we can work towards in establishing the workforce and ensuring families have access and are able to afford quality child care. It's very hard to express in this time how we feel, because it's hard to see in the other people they receive a minimum wage $15, $17, and we receive the less. And we work in all the time. We open our doors for family child cares in very hard situation. And this time, not too many coworkers, they open the doors because it's too hard to survive in this time with this salary we will receive. We don't have any benefits. We don't have medical insurance. So I think it's the time to put it in the list. What important is our jobs. We care kids. It's one life, and we teach them. They're gonna be ready to go to kindergarten. We provide food, we provide everything in these little lives, but that's not very important because they're gonna the future. Maybe in this kids I care him now, he's gonna be a mayor, he's gonna be representing you, but we need to work too hard. But for that, we need more money. We need they support us, because it's very, very sad to hear my coworkers, they close the door because they can't do anymore because the money is not too much for us. Then this time, that's different cases, and I know my friends, she has sick because the kids bring the virus, the coronavirus to her house. All the family was in the hospital, and that's very hard. And I'm working this job because I love my job. I love to see with the kids, they know the first letters, the first transitions, and when their fathers, they got coming and say, oh, thank you, Miss Emma, my son, he's in first grade, and he's in honors, but it's hard to do it. I love it, but it's hard. And this time, it's hard to take a decision if I can tomorrow gonna open the doors for my program, because I have one child and the money I receive, that's not too much for pay my bills. So, and I would like to, they think we need more money, and we need you put it in the list. We are very important in this time, more for the economy, because we open the economy too. So thank you so much.
And Catherine.
Good morning, everybody. Wow, Emma, you're a tough act to follow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm pleased to join Congressman Cicilline and Congressman Langevin to highlight some of the key components of the Build Back Better Act that will make a real difference in the health and financial security of people 50 and older. The vote in the U.S. House of Representatives is an historic step to help older adults afford the prescription drugs they need. The bill that the House passed includes meaningful reforms to bring down medication costs, finally allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices, penalizing drug companies that increase their prices faster than inflation, adding a hard out-of-pocket cap to Medicare Part D, and capping copayments for insulin. Older adults are sick and tired of paying the highest prices in the world for the medications they need. AARP applauds the members of Congress who stood up to Big Pharma and ensured that Build Back Better will lower drug prices and reduce costs for all taxpayers. Thank you, Congressman Cicilline, and thank you, Congressman Langevin. AARP strongly supports the bill's investment in the health of older adults by adding a hearing benefit to the Medicare program. It's long overdue that Medicare cover the whole person, and this is an important step in the process. We thank the House for including paid leave in their bill, offering much needed help to working family caregivers who are struggling to balance paid employment and caring for their loved ones. AARP supports the critical investments made in home and community-based services so that more older Americans are able to choose how they live as they age, as well as the job training investments to help the long-term unemployed, many of whom are older workers. Importantly, the bill will also make health coverage more affordable and accessible for millions of Americans aged 50 to 64. And the bill makes significant investment in housing, which of course is of critical importance to older adults who benefit from the construction and repair of affordable and age-friendly housing options. Now we urge the Senate to take up this legislation and move towards a vote quickly. Older Americans have had enough with broken promises of reform, and AARP Rhode Island and our 132,000 members will continue our fight for prescription drug reform, including taking on Big Pharma until this bill is signed into law and implemented. Thank you, and thank you, Patrick Quinn, for hosting this.
Leanne, the last speaker from Kids Count.
Thank you. My glass is ready, and I want to really express my thank you to Congressman Langevin and Congressman Cicilline. And as Congressman Cicilline said, we are starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel after decades of work to try to make things better for kids. And as we've heard, Build Back Better is really a historic, transformational opportunity for all of the children and families in Rhode Island and across the country. So to highlight again, childcare, the package will help 9 out of 10 families. It will lower the cost, improve the affordability. There's 3 things you care about in childcare: affordability, quality, and reliability. So the affordability is in there. It also focuses on the wages of childcare educators. Currently in Rhode Island, $12.11 is the median wage, so half make less than that. And again, it's 99% women, about 60% people of color. So we want to increase the wages, which will improve the reliability and the quality by focusing on increasing the wages of childcare educators. Paid family leave is in the bill, 4 weeks with scaled wage replacement. That's work we need to do in Rhode Island so that low wage workers can actually take paid family leave. They need to get good wage replacement so they can afford to take it. The child tax credit, we've already seen that flowing out through ARPA, and it's really causing a historic reduction in child poverty. Full refundability is now permanent, so that will last forever. And there's $3,600 per child under 6, $30,000 per child 6 through 17 per year. And lastly, to round it out, health. Health is the foundation of everything, as we've seen in COVID. The CHIP program is now made permanent. So we don't have to keep fighting and we can rely on that funding. We have 12-month continuous eligibility for kids, so kids cannot fall off rapidly. And we have 12 months postpartum coverage for pregnant or women who've just given birth. Right now, 60 days postpartum, many women are expected to find another source of health insurance, which is really a terrible time as anybody who's had a baby to have another project to do at 60 days postpartum. And a lot of women are experiencing maternal depression and other health problems at that time. So again, just to really want to celebrate, and I want to make sure you see people smile, that we are very happy. It's been a really long, hard fight, and we are so excited and can't wait for the Senate to pass it as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you again to all of our speakers, and happy to answer some of your questions. I'll give the hard ones to Mr. Langevin. Yes.
Sure. Congressman, Pat Ford, Coalition Radio Network. I've got two questions. The city of Woonsocket activists, the city of Woonsocket has drawn considerable ire from activists with regard to the failure of the city of Woonsocket to engage in their first tranche of federal money. Any relief for housing, any relief for, any of the social issues that are the bane of most major northeastern cities. Do you have any comment on that in terms of the intent of the program?
Well, I mean, I think it's important, all of the provisions that are in the Build Back Better, and frankly, the investments we made in the bipartisan infrastructure bill and the American Rescue Plan, the intention is, of course, to help folks first through the rescue plan to get through the pandemic and to crush the virus. The recovery package, which is the bipartisan infrastructure bill and Build Back Better, is for us to recover, and to recover in an inclusive way, particularly, has been mentioned, women and particularly people of color who have been devastated by this pandemic. And so I think it's the hope and the intention that this money get out as quickly as possible to help families who are struggling with, particularly as Congressman Landry mentioned, the increases in costs at the grocery store and at the gas pump. So it's more important than ever that this money and this help get out. Housing remains a critical issue in Rhode Island and places all across the country. So the whole idea, of course, is to be sure it's done right and done well, with real accountability, but obviously to get out as quickly as possible because people are hurting right now. And so, I think there are some communities that have been very successful in moving quickly, some not as quickly. I think we will all be happy when the state of Rhode Island leads the nation in getting this federal money out as quickly as possible and getting the help to people who need it so desperately.
I've got to touch on one inflation question that's open to either of you. It's a staple of fundamental economics that increases in government spending and the money supply will lead to inflation. This is particularly true when resources are scarce, as they currently are as a result of the pandemic and disruptions in the supply chain. Inflation is rising dramatically. Do either of you worry that inflation will continue to significantly erode the purchasing power, well, quite frankly, of the very people you wish to help?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start that and I'll invite Jim to. Look, the inflation that people are seeing principally in two places, in gas prices and food, is real. And, I hear it from constituents all the time. I'm sure Congressman Landry does as well. The important thing is what is reflected in Build Back Better and the American Rescue Plan is designed to increase the income of families, working families, through tax credits, through covering costs that they currently cover in terms of universal pre-K and child care, and also things, like the child care tax credit, as well as lowering the cost of prescription drugs, lowering the cost of healthcare with additional premiums. So it's all about cutting costs, raising incomes, and making sure it's paid for by having people pay their fair share. I think most experts who have studied this, there are 17 Nobel Prize winning economists and Moody's Analytics that have affirmed that the Build Back Better Act will actually grow the economy without increasing inflation because it's paid for. And in fact, the bill, they have said, will ease inflationary pressures because it invests in long-term economic capacity to enhance the ability of more people to participate productively in the economy and to do so at higher wages with better benefits. So I think the long-term view of this is quite clear. I think the president is taking actions today, actually in releasing petroleum from the petroleum reserve that will help address the immediate problem. The president is taking dramatic steps to deal with the supply chain. I mean, most of this is driven by the pandemic and the consequences of that. So I think the president has been very smart to respond to the short-term challenges right away by executive action. But I think actually Build Back Better and the investments we're making, I agree with the 17 Nobel Prize winning economists that it will ease the inflationary pressures.
I'll just echo about what David said. That is a short, medium, and long-term aspect to inflation, and I applaud the president for acting quickly where he can. Some of this is, in the short run, is still transitory, inflation as a result of supply chain shortages, bottlenecks at the ports, truckers on the roads. You're still dealing with the pandemic, so as people are slow to come back to work, that has had an impact. The supply chain issues again at the ports, but the president has made sure that we've got the ports running 24/7 now, and that's going to ease pressures on the supply chain. We're hearing news reports even as of yesterday that the markets are seeing the easing of these bottlenecks and supply chains. So we're not out of the woods yet. The president, as David mentioned, is addressing the high cost of fuel right now by releasing supplies from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, flooding the market, if you will, with fuel supplies. That will help bring down the cost of everything from home heating oil to gas prices for the short term. Obviously, the long term, or medium and long term, we transition to a green economy. People are going to be driving electric cars more than using gas to power their cars. That in of itself, again, is a medium to long term solution to end high energy costs and such, and then transition over to alternative other fuel sources with wind and solar. Is going to help add supply to our energy needs that will help bring down costs of energy. But again, there's a short, medium, and a long-term plan to this. The Build Back Better plan and the executive actions that the president's taken is designed to address these things. But I understand, we understand that the American people are feeling the pain at the pump right now. They're feeling the supply chain issues and the high costs in commodities, and we're looking at it. We leave no stone unturned to address these things now.
Thank you.
One additional thing I would just add is, the other issue which is real here, and has gotten worse during the pandemic, is, the economic consolidation and concentration of these large companies. And there's lots of evidence that they are taking, these gigantic corporations are taking full advantage of this pandemic to gouge consumers and to generate kind of record profits. And so part of this also is restoring competition in a variety of markets. The president directed the chair of the FTC to do a thorough and quick analysis as to whether that's happening, particularly in the petroleum area. But I think we're seeing that too, this sort of, sadly, this corporate greed that is taking full advantage of a public health epidemic to generate record profits and jack up prices. So we're battling that as well.
Will you then be, just to follow on that, will you be looking for significant tax reform in the upcoming Congress? And because so many of these quote unquote profits are generated by the hodgepodge, the quilt work of federal tax laws, is reform on the horizon?
Yeah, well, what's very exciting is in the Build Back Better Act, there is substantial corporate tax reform with a global minimum tax for corporations, which is going to be incredibly valuable, both in preventing offshoring of American jobs, removing the incentive to move American jobs overseas, and also ensuring that corporations pay their fair share. So we've done that in the Build Back Better Act. What I also think we need, and I know the president's deeply committed to this, is we need to really vigorously enforce antitrust laws and restore competition in a variety of sectors of our economy that will make a real difference in driving down price, creating more innovation, protecting consumers, protecting workers. And the president's assembled a great team: Jonathan Cantor at the DOJ, Lena Khan at the FTC, Tim Wu at the National Economic Council, who all understand deeply the importance of competition. So I think that's the other part of the answer.
Yeah, and making sure that big corporations and wealthy individuals are paying their fair share is the right thing to do. And let's face it, the corporations and high net worth individuals, they weren't necessarily not paying their fair share because they were doing the wrong thing. They were taking advantage of the tax loopholes and the way the tax laws were written. President Biden is determined to change that and make sure that the loopholes are closed, that there's certain minimums that are in place so that corporations and high net worth individuals, wealthy individuals, are paying their fair share. It's the right thing to do, and we should expect no less.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, so you talked about workforce development. We're in a huge crisis when it comes to staffing for healthcare workers, and we're at SEIU now. How could the Build Back Better plan help with workforce development, help fill our hospitals, our nursing homes, so on?
Well, I'll answer that, and then I'll invite Patrick if I miss anything. I think first and most importantly, it provides resources so you can increase the wages of people who work in the healthcare field. That's the first thing. I mean, people need to be paid, an amount of money commensurate with what they do, and they do really important work. And I think finally, Build Back Better is a reflection of an understanding of the important work people do in the healthcare field, and particularly in the care economy. So better wages, making sure that people have the ability to access jobs, and then also, improve their skills and get new training and additional training that will make them not only a better employee or better worker, but also eligible for higher compensation. So it's really about improving quality, improving compensation, making sure those resources are available to states, whether it be in the child care area, in the hospital setting, so that people can be paid what they deserve. I mean, I was turned to Patrick during this press conference and said there's something wrong in a country where we pay people who take care of our children less than we pay people out of McDonald's or Target. Like, that's just wrong. Like, they ought to be paid much more money. I think Build Back Better is the beginning of that, because it provides resources to states to do just that.
I would just add that, just in just the last couple of months, before this was passed at the state level, the threshold for getting home and community-based services was $1,200 a month. That's insane. That's real deep poverty. So that basically was creating a situation where people who were really poor had no other alternative other than to go in an institutional setting. The current state administration, the key administration, moved the rate for home care folks on the IP to $15 an hour. Congressman Cicilline's 100% right. We got to pay people commensurate with the risk and the value of what they're doing, and we've undervalued that work primarily because it's women and women of color and immigrants that are doing this work. So to the degree that there's some inflation based on paying people more, that's a good thing. I don't want to pay more for gasoline, nor does anyone else. But people, if you're a home care worker, if you're a nursing home worker, if you're a nurse in a hospital, the landlord doesn't give you a break. Grid doesn't give you a break because you're doing valuable work. You got to pay the same freight as everybody else. So, it's really, really important that in all of this that we take a look at, because we do a good job training doctors and we focus a lot on that, but the rest of the workforce, whether it's entry level PCA in a home care setting, all the way up to somebody as an RN in a very specialized unit, we need to focus on that training. People go into considerable debt to get that training. That has not worked out well for us in the last year. These workforce issues, people retiring, people leaving, people moving to other sectors, people essentially just dropping out of the workforce. We need an intentional strategy, and this is foundational. Build Back Better is foundational to grow our healthcare workforce, recognize the work of people of color and immigrants, and provide the resources for people to get trained to get to the next job so that they can do this as a career. This is really important, not only for the people that are doing the work and the people they care for, but for everybody else who's relying on them. I mean, Leanne said it perfectly. If you pay people, poverty wages, that builds instability right there. It's hard to be a true advocate for, say, a mental health patient if you're in crisis yourself, because you can't afford, housing, or you can't afford healthcare. So lifting up those standards and allowing people to who want to do this work, as Emma said, who want to do this work, who this is what their life's calling is, but they can't take a vow of poverty to do that, and we should not expect them to do that. We should expect them, if we recognize anything here, we need to recognize that we paid a lot of people too little, and a bunch of people have made a lot of money in the pandemic. So we need to honor the sacrifice and the commitment of our nurses, our PCAs, our nursing home workers, all the people that are in the care economy, and lift up their wages, because that will help us address many of the turnover issues and many of the training issues. It has to be a job that people can afford to live decently in the society that we're in. Otherwise, people will move out of it, and we'll have constant turnover and instability, and that's not good for anyone. So
Thank you, Patrick.
I hope that addresses your question.
Just one other question as well. There are some on the other side of the aisle that say that Build Back Better is a huge investment that's not exactly necessary right now. Could you speak to what are the ramifications, especially here in Rhode Island, if this doesn't pass?
Well, I would say, look, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, the president's response to the pandemic has really been in three parts: the American Rescue Plan, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and Build Back Better. It's my view that all three of these are absolutely necessary. One was to get us through the worst part of the pandemic. That's the American Rescue Plan. The bipartisan infrastructure bill was, of course, roads, bridges, ports, transit, very important. $2.5 billion coming to Rhode Island directly, which is terrific. But if this economic recovery is going to be a recovery in which everyone has an opportunity to participate, Build Back Better is absolutely essential, because without that, particularly women who have been devastated by this pandemic, disproportionately, and particularly women of color, they will be prevented in many instances from re-entering the workforce and fully participating because of things like child care and the absence of universal pre-K and paid family leave and all. So I think the president's been very clear that the reason we have to pass Build Back Better is because we want our economic recovery to reach everyone, not only because it benefits those individuals, every individual, but because we as a country, we as a state will benefit by the full participation of everyone in our economic recovery. This is an opportunity to rebuild and to use this moment, this pandemic, which revealed so many inequities, so much inequality in housing and healthcare and a variety of other places. This is our chance. If we just sort of solve the pandemic and move on like it, we're, I think, making a terrible mistake. So this Build Back Better will allow us to recover from the pandemic, but to do it in a way that rebuilds an economy that's going to be sustainable and enduring, because everybody can participate fully. So we're going to fight hard. We're not contemplating the possibility that Build Back Better is not going to become the law. It is. I know the Senate's going to pass it. I know the President's going to sign it.
Agreed. Well said. Agreed. We're going to get it across the finish line. That's why we work this hard to make sure that it becomes reality.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And thank you to all of our
Thank
Patrick, thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick.
Thank you.